Hello and welcome to another reading vlog. So for this one, I read books based on other people's recommendations. I've got to fix this. I just saw it in the viewfinder. Okay, that's a bit better. So this vlog is all about books other people recommended, either specifically to me or just to the population in general. So I'm going to start with the more broad recommendations. So the first book I read was Flawless by Elsie Silver. So this is just gone gangbusters. Everybody's recommending it. Everybody's saying it's amazing. It's part of the Chestnut Spring series. I know too much about this book and I thought, okay, let's give it a go. I had a feeling it wasn't for me because contemporary romance and it's a fine line, you know, between hate and love. My favorite authors are Abby Jimenez and Emily Henry, for instance. They're the top two, I would say. So I had a feeling this probably wasn't going to be for me, but I tried. I really did. So basically this is a cowboy romance with adults who talk and act like they're 13. And I hated every part of this book as much as Rhett hates milk. So basically you have Rhett, who is a bull rider, something like that, okay? And he's the it boy, but he's a bad boy. And he got busted telling everybody how much he hates cow titty juice. And his biggest sponsor are the dairy farmers. So he's in big trouble. So basically his agent sends his daughter to babysit him. Part of this book, I don't know why the author included this, are text conversations between said daughter, what's her name? Summer, her name's Summer. Her and her dad are constantly talking about not getting on Rhett's dick. And it got so cringy so quickly. I'm like, why are you talking to your dad about, why is your dad saying, hey, don't get in his bed, don't ride his dick? What? Why? Just why? We learned too much about Rhett's dick in this and how much he likes to beat his meat. And I did not like it, Sam I am. It was all cocksucker this, cocksucker that, and I didn't enjoy anything about it. I don't get the hype, my dudes. I'm sorry. Yay for all of you who love this, but this book and I know. I now have a Chestnut Springs intolerance. What can I say? It's not meant to be. So I did DNF that book. So the next general recommendation was from 3 booktubers, and those are Leora, Eileen, The Book Leo, and Nina Katharina. So I will link everybody's channel that I mentioned down below. And they were all listening to actually at the same time, The Age of Magical Overthinking. And lo and behold, my library also had it on audiobook, so I thought I'll listen along to it as well. It's not what I thought it was going to be. It's basically, it touches on psychological phenomena such as confirmation bias, for instance, and it sort of weaves it into what feels like a memoir. And the structure of the book just felt very disjointed to me, and it didn't feel very sciencey, to be honest. It felt more like this author's personal experiences and opinions, which is fine. It's a non-fic, but this author believes that pseudo spiritual practices, like for instance, manifestation, basically makes you a conspiracy theorist. You know, it's the same mentality as conspiracy theorists. And I like to believe in the power of manifestation and thoughts become things. So I didn't like her very judgmental tone in this, especially as someone who considers themselves to be a bit esoteric and spiritual. The entire first chapter of this book too was about Swifties and their sort of hive-like mentality and the way that they quickly will turn on their idol if their idol does not act in a way that they expect their idol to act. But I just didn't like it. Like I said, it felt very judgy and very just personal opinion, so I did DNF this one. The next book that was recommended to me by Monty Adkins, who has their own YouTube channel, and this was Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. So look, I did probably have a little bit of high expectations going into this because I have heard of this. It's quite popular, and I unfortunately have an unpopular opinion. So, sorry Monty, I'm sorry, I really tried, but this starts with a really gross sex scene with a 16-year-old girl. I did not like the way it was written, and I don't understand why. Did the character have to be 16 in this? It really did just give me the ick, and it's hard for me with books that have women written by men, especially sex scenes written by men. It has to be done in a certain way, otherwise I feel the male gaze, and this was the case with this really unpleasant sex scene. It's about a young girl who is trained to be an assassin after suffering family tragedy, and she has this gift that she can speak with shadows. This was another annoying part of the book. So you were told repeatedly that the shadow that looks like a cat but is not a cat, and over and over again, looks like a cat but not a cat, looks like a cat but not a cat. Like we get it. We get that the shadow that looks like a cat is actually not a cat. We understand. Please stop telling us this. Please. We are not 3. We have object permanence and things like that. But basically, back to the plot line. She wants to go and apprentice at the Red Church, which is like this famous organization, so that she can really hone her skills, so she can be good enough to execute all the people on her Kill Bill list, basically. The issues with me, the writing style, and I did not jive. It felt very overwritten for me, with just the metaphors and the similes and the adjectives and the trying to be funny. So this has a massive amount of info dumping too, not just in the chapters, but in the footnotes of every chapter. So the footnotes are basically attempts at humor or info dumping. Once again, the humor style and we weren't a match, and so I just didn't enjoy it. I found it boring. I found it irritating in a way, and it's just like one of those cases where it's just not for me. You know, everybody else luxuriates in it, thinks it's beautiful and cashmere, and I find it to be more like sandpaper or 100% itchy wool. So it was a sweater that I just had to take off, unfortunately. But like I said, do take my reviews with a grain of salt, especially with these very mega popular books. I have a weird reading taste. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There really isn't. I wish there was a formula, because obviously I would be reading books that I enjoy, but I don't really. It's random. It is completely random. But yeah, this one just didn't do it for me. I said it was another DNF. I know, not a great start. But where is it? I have to actually go and grab it because I have this on hand. Okay, so I had to grab it from Indy's room because that's where it lives now. So this was a recommendation by T276 Patriot, and I had to purchase it because it wasn't at the library and I wanted to get it for this vlog. That is Oetsu, Love Poems by Cats. But this is what I mean when my taste is random, except for, I guess, books that have pictures of cats. So this viewer nailed it. This is a book of poetry. I'll put some pictures up above that's supposed to be written from the cat's perspective. And I'm not gonna lie, I did find it funny. Like, for instance, this poem is called Believe in Us. To me, you will always be that special person who bought the wrong cat bed 4 times in a row. 4. And yet I still try to make us work. It just works. It works for me. I laughed out loud. I actually legitimately laughed out loud because this is a book about cats being cats, and cats are assholes. And that's what comes across in the poetry. I know most people would find this cringe, would find this lame, but it brought me joy. Okay, it just did. So this is what I mean. I'm sorry to anyone who recommends me fantastic literature and then it's like, hey, this is great. This is a 5-star. Like, I'm aware of my own ludicrousness. So this is a hardcover book. Oh, my daughter, seeing Indy, she's never had a book with a dust jacket before. Oh, she didn't like it. That's putting it lightly. Her and the dust jacket, they've got beef. But this is the hardcover. So it's got printed stuff on there. But she loves this, but she hates this. And I'm like, I get you, babes. Very few of us read books with the dust jackets on, let's be real. But yeah, this was very enjoyable, so thank you. Nailed it. A book about asshole cat poetry with pictures of kitties. Who would have thunk, right? Like, left field. But no, yeah, so this was a 5-star read for me. And then we've got a recommendation from my best friend, Kate. We don't actually share a lot of similar reading taste, which is bizarre. We're very similar people, but reading wise, I think she's definitely into more purple prose, poetic, things that I probably would find meandering or obtuse. She gets lost in and eats up, so.
Aw, thanks, babe. I would love to. My book recommendation is Marilyn Hacker's Love, Death, and the Changing of the Seasons. It's a poetry book. I love her poetry. There is a kind of just like everyday realism and beauty about her work that I really love. It's also about lesbian sex and relationships, and was one of the first known queer writers I read that felt like someone was just writing about a true relationship. They weren't trying to like glamorize or paint over what being a lesbian is like or what loving women is like. It's about love. It's about loving people and about loving humans, and the complexity of that and the difficulty that comes up when one has a changeable heart and an intense heart. And the writing is beautiful. So all in all, just really good stuff.
She did recommend me this. This is Love, Death and the Changing of the Seasons by Marilyn Hacker. So these are pretty much sapphic poems about a relationship. They do have a narrative flow. It's sort of in a linear style. They are sonnets, basically, about the course of this relationship between these two women. It's almost diary-esque. It feels quite personal. It is quite descriptive and lurid. There is a lot of sex in here, guys. My favorite one is this one, which is called 8 Days in April. And it says, I broke a glass, got bloodstains on the sheet. Hereafter, must I only write you chaste connubial poems? Now that I have traced away from there to here, across the sweetest morning, rose-blushed blonde, will-measured feet advance processionally, where before they scuff-heeled flights of stairs, kicked at a door, or danced in wingtips to a dirty beat? Or do I tell the world that I have got rich quick, got lucky, got laid, got just what the doctor ordered, more than I deserved? This is the second morning I woke, curved around your dreaming. In one night, I've seen moonset and sunrise in your lion's mane. So that was definitely my favorite. But for me, they did start to feel repetitive. So it is a big one. There's 207 pages. I just felt like all of the sonnets didn't need to be in there. Like some of them were a bit same. Some of them did feel diary-esque. Like this is what I did today and went here, walked there, saw that. Obviously said in a more poetic manner, but it was nice. It just didn't light my fire. It always is with poetry, you know. This one was pleasant, but it didn't speak to the depths of my soul like I know it does for my friend. But thank you, my darling, for recommending it to me, and I'm glad to have this shared experience with you. I have saved, though, the best for last. This was my favorite read of this. So this was once again a general recommendation, and I probably saw it on dozens of channels. The ones I remember seeing it on are Books and Lala, Riley Marie, and Woodland Bunny. And that is the book Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. So look, I do love the cover. I'll put it up close. I don't know if you're going to see it with that glare, but that's the cover, and I think it's gorgeous. And boy, oh boy, was I in for a ride with this. So first of all, the plot. It's a sapphic horror, okay? You have Rosemary, who's one day at the farmer's market, and she sees the vision that is Ash. She has an absolute bi awakening. And the moment that Ash puts one of her cupcakes in Rosemary's mouth, Rosemary is a goner. She falls tongue first, basically for Ash. But no, she is enamored with her. And look, there's a hint to what this is about when it says, as her obsession with Ash consumes her, she may find she's not the one doing the devouring. But I don't want to fully spoil what the horror is in this. But the writing, it's even more delicious than the cupcakes mentioned. I licked every crumb of it up. It was lush and decadent and gorgeous. I adored it. This writing style, I want to go to bed with it and never leave. However, this is a horror story. This is a horror story. So I was waiting for it. You see the signs. Rosemary herself was in a previously abusive relationship with a man, and she finds herself seeing the flags in Ash, but ignoring them because, look, it is her first female-female relationship, and it was hard to read. It was hard to read those particular scenes, and then when it culminates in it, you're like, oh, Rosemary, how did you get here? What have you done? How can you get away? It is horrific. Look, this is probably the most horror that I can stomach, and it's probably a bit more than I could stomach, so to speak. Yeah, I struggle with stuff like this. Because do I go to bed and then imagine myself in that scenario? I do. I'm sitting in bed going over it. I don't want the darkness in there, but this still was a fantastic read, and I still will pick up horror. I think perhaps I prefer more psychological horror, like A Short Stay in Hell, rather than physical murdery kind of things. I think it's the violence, the on-page violence that I don't enjoy, because I see it. I've got a very descriptive imagination, and I don't just see, I feel. It's a very full body experience for me. But still, it was worth it. It was worth the uncomfortableness and the grotesqueness, because I loved everything up to that part. And I found an author now that I do enjoy. So this was fantastic, and it is a 5-star for me. Hello, Editing Chanel here. I also wanted to mention that Manna Snowfall recommended Convenience Store Woman to me. Thank you for the rec, but I have read that. It's not listed on my Goodreads because I read it during a year that I was not logging, but I also wanted to mention that was also recommended to me. So let's recap the recommendations vlog. We had Flawless by Elsie Silva. That was a DNF. We had The Age of Magical Overthinking, which was an audiobook, and that was also a DNF. Then we had Nevernight by J. Christoph, which was another DNF, unfortunately. We had this lovely book of poetry, Love, Death, and the Changing of the Seasons, which I enjoyed, but wasn't a 5-star poetry book for me. And then we had Oh, It's You, Love Horns by Cats, which was a 5 stars, and Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson, which was another 5 stars. Hello, Sylvie. Hello, Sylvie. So to be honest, it actually was a successful vlog. I got 2 5-stars out of this, and an enjoyable read, and then 3 books, look, that just weren't for me. I wouldn't call them bad, except for Flawless by Elsa Silva, but no, everyone has their own taste, and it just wasn't my taste. Like for instance, the food caviar, people go ape shit over that. They absolutely love that. I can't stand it, so, and that's luxury. That's considered the epitome of good taste. So maybe, with Flawless and Nevernight and The Age of Magical Thinking, maybe I just don't have exquisite taste buds. But like I said, always you do you, boo. But for me, the 2 winners from this vlog were these 2 babies. So successful. But that's everything for this vlog. Until next time, stay wild, star child.